Could you be my
Dan?
Dan?
Yeah.
Could you get the ladder, please?
Coming. I knew they brought me along for a reason.
We'll assign points to that.
All right, I call this meeting to order and ordering public notices. Okay, sorry. I'm calling this meeting to order, noting public notice of this meeting was posted at the school district office and website, all school buildings, Lodi Enterprise, the Portage Daily Register, Lodi City Hall, Lodi Town Hall, the Dane Village Hall, Dane Township Hall, West Point Town Hall, Vienna Town Hall, Lodi Public Library, mailed to clerks at Arlington, Decorah, and Roxbury Townships. I need a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Rick's, Westfall, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Yeah, that's weird. All right, moving on to approval of the agenda.
No, we did that.
We did that? Oh, I called, okay, sorry. Public input. The purpose of the citizen input agenda item is for the public to provide comments on any agenda item and to publicly address the Board of Education on items that pertain to school business. The amount of time allotted to each speaker will generally not exceed 5 minutes per person to allow all people who wish to speak an opportunity to be heard. However, the president may modify the times at my discretion. If the speaker has questions for the board, they will be duly noted and responses will be provided in an appropriate manner. But the board cannot respond to individual questions or individual comments as part of the public input agenda item. As an additional reminder, the board cannot take action on any item that was brought forth during the public input session or on any item that was not posted on the meeting agenda. Citizen input is an important part of the board meeting agenda, and the board appreciates hearing from the community on issues concerning them and our school district. Is there anyone here this evening that would like to come forward and have a question for the board or want to participate in public input? Please come forward right now. Is this table really close to the board?
Not intimidating at all.
You get to sit with two board members tonight.
All right, not seeing any public input, we're going to move on to the first agenda item, which is to discuss the budget survey and financial issues in relation to a future facility and referendum decision.
Kind of ordered this from the standpoint of going over the survey results. Then Dan has worked extensively on putting together a tax implication based on the information that we have from Baird and Associates who have worked with us, and also the decline of our debt service over the high school situation. I did obtain some sample resolutions, so you can take a look at those if there's however you want to group these or how you want to put them together. Quarles and Brady, who is our bonding agency, did those for us, so you can either pick a sample or you can combine a sample, and then I would get that information to them so that the final resolutions that you're wanting to take action on would happen next week. And then last but not least, just a brief kind of survey relative to the properties that we've been looking at and a report on basically the engineering study of those two. So kind of just start with an overview of the facility perspective, and then I'm just going to turn it over to you because you're the ones that need to look at the data and the information. As anticipated, when you have multiple different things that you're trying to seek input on, some of the comments that you might have seen relate to the fact that this is confusing or some of those kinds of comments. And we kind of understood that that might be an issue, but because there were so many different things out there, in order to give them an opportunity to do the best job possible responding, we had to give them a lot of information, which I think may have added to some of the frustration about taking the survey. However, after the fact, from the standpoint of we had how many, 400?
393.
393 respondents to the survey, so you have a pretty good cross-section of what people are thinking. And I think gives you some insights in helping you take that data and narrow down what it is that you want to do regarding any possible referendum. So I also would tell you that as an educator, I believe we have to find a way, and I'm not sure exactly, because the last time we did a referendum, we had 21 meetings, went all over the community to get information out, and probably 50 or 60 people at the most attended those 21 meetings, which was a lot of time and effort on your part to put those together. But as looking through this, there's a lot of people that don't understand, or at least have viewpoints relative to the board and decision-making and how we utilize our funds that we have tried to explain multiple different times, either through the annual meeting or through the meetings when we did our last referendum, and that message is not getting out. So we need to find a way. I'm not sure exactly what that is, and it's a little bit of a frustration, I think, maybe to you as much as to me as you read through the comments in that regard. So with that, since we're going to talk about that a little bit more, we'll come back to that. But Dan had a piece of information that he put together, which is the referendum option impact comparisons. I want him to come up and explain that to you. And the two board members that are on the phone, Dan's going to be sitting right next to you, so you should be able to hear it, but you may not have the document in your possession. But it is on the board docs. I think you can pull it up. And if you happen to have board docs available to you from your phone location, you can pull it up as well. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dan to talk about what he put together, how it implicates what we're talking about as far as resolutions. So, okay?
Thanks, Chuck. So you might recall from 5 or 6 weeks ago when Mike Clark from Baird came in and presented his hypothetical funding scenarios document, which presented based on his initial thoughts on what might be appropriate for a referendum, how that would impact over a period of years. Because your discussion has a lot of different variables and a lot of different options of permutation, how much of an operating referendum would you want to ask for, what specific building project you want to ask for, I couldn't very well have them run us 30, 40, 50 different models to try and pick and choose from here at the meeting. So what I wanted to put together for you was a matrix of the different options that you have based on the data that we have right now. So the option impact comparison document that's up on the screen, actually no, that's the survey, sorry.
I'll get it up there for you.
Thank you. That was sent out on the board docs. I just want to go over some of the assumptions underlying it. Basically what I was looking at was the impact to the district as if we could make our existing referendum go away and apply a new given option today, which is obviously not how it works. The transition from our current referendum to a new one would take place over a period of years. But then you're getting into forecasting, trying to build a model over time. Those numbers become less and less precise as you go out. So to make sure that when you're looking at comparing the operating referendum to options for building referendum, that you're getting a true apples to apples comparison. Really the only way to do that is to pick a point in time and run the numbers based on that point in time. So the point in time that we have, the most current data that we have, based on the July 1st date estimate that DPI put out this year, with our property value, with the fact that we're negatively aided in the state aid formula at 24.76 cents on the dollar, based on the assumption that whatever operating question we propose, the full amount would be used for expenditures, meaning the full aid impact would be on that. That for a building project, just like when you take a mortgage out on your own house, there's a financing cost attached to that. And over the life of bond issue, as Mike recommended, the staggered bond issue, so it would actually be over 21 years, a pair of 20-year bonds staggered in over a 2-year period. Total financing cost over that period would be $457 per thousand borrowed. And that the updated cost estimates that we got from the research, plus some additional land acquisition costs, which Chuck can talk about as far as the updated information that we have on the site that are being
Is
used.
that number you just gave up here somewhere?
Financing costs? Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, we'll set the number.
Okay,
Yep.
all right, thank you.
Yep. So I wanted to put all this in bullet, but I also wanted to go over just so everyone was clear. So the most updated site information, and then just noting the fact that with the way that we fund schools in Wisconsin, there's no way we can provide an exact guaranteed tax impact of any project. That's just something everybody needs to be clear on. One other piece is that if you're looking at this and you're looking at the numbers we got from Mike Clark, if you can scroll down a little bit for me, Mo. So you might have remembered from Mike's presentation, there was this nice sort of declining bar chart that he gave about the impact on tax rates over time. When Baird runs a model, they run a model based on the net change from what is going on now. So when Mr. Clark did a forecast that was based on transitioning from the old referendum to the new referendum and what that difference would be, so the net impact. The numbers that I've given you on this summary are gross numbers, meaning that it displays not only the impact of a levy, but the impact on our state aid, both for what we have now and for each individual scenario. So like for example, on the Baird chart, if you still have that, but if you don't, for example, the 2016, our current non-recurring referendum works out to 87 cents on the mill rate. That does not take into account the aid impact on spending $950,000. When you add that additional aid impact in, that's where that $1.09 on the first page of that sheet comes from. So these are all gross numbers. The numbers that Mike Clark gave you from Baird are net numbers. Just want to explain the difference between the two so everyone's clear, everyone's understanding and transparent.
So basically what you're saying is that the net impact of this is not dollar for dollar.
Correct.
Okay.
Based on where we're at in the aid formula, every dollar we spend is about 24, almost about 25 on the levy. It's just the reality of the school funding, where we're at in the formula. So I have two different sets of numbers for you. The first one is the impact of an operating referendum. And obviously the first number is, if we don't do a new one, what would the levy impact be if we just took $950,000 out right now? So that's where the $1.09 figure comes from, $950 plus the aid impact that we currently have to make up for on the levy. And then for a variety of numbers, $100,000, and that's really more just, if you want to think about different options, you can think about it as every $100,000 up or down, that's about 11 cents on the mill rate. And then for $1 million, $1.5 million, and $2 million, both the absolute, what it costs the levy for us to have that much revenue authority, and then the change from the $950 that we have now. So that's what those options are on the first page for the operating referendum. The second page is for a building question. Just as with the first page, the first thing that I'm giving you is what would happen if our current debt just went away right now, what the effect would be on the levy and the mill rate. And then for all different scenarios that are under discussion, the option HB, just the primary school, what if we just build a new school, what if we add a new gym with a couple of options that are under discussion. For HA, replacing both schools, again, by itself, with the gym at the new school and the high school. And then at the bottom, a few standalone impacts, just by themselves. What are the two gym options under discussion? What impact do those have? And then also the district office option that Plunkett had described. So this is really to give you an understanding of, if you're thinking about what kind of operating referendum, what kind of building project, you want to think about the impact of the two together. That's what this is intended to help you do. Any questions on the sheet that I handed out?
So the two separate numbers, just to be clear, is that our current cost for the operating referendum is $1.09. That is separate from what we're currently levying for the debt service on the high school, which is $2.31. So combining the two together gives you a total But you can't do that when you're doing a referendum because the recurring has to stand by itself or non-recurring. And the debt service on any building that you decide to pursue has to stand by itself. But essentially, you start with that $1.09 is what we're currently levying to get the 950. So anything you do up or down changes that number. And on the other side, you're currently levying $2.31 to pay for the high school that was built and will be paid off. So the numbers that you see under the quote mill rate estimates are what it would cost in each one of those options that you're discussing.
So if we do a operating referendum of 1.5 million, that would add 66 cents over what that referendum costs. Or what the current operation.
If we could switch them out immediately, it would full
Right.
impact right now. Realistically, we can't do, but as a method of comparison, that's what it is.
Instead of $1.09, it would be $1.71.
And then if we chose HB, that would be, it would drop 57, the mill rate, but then if we added the 2 gyms, we would add another 16 cents to that. Okay, that makes perfect sense.
Well, so the gym options are either or. So of the 3 options, the first one
I
is
see
the
what
school
you're
by itself, second one, gym at the new school, third one, gym in the wrestling room at the high school.
But if we did both, you would just add those figures together, or no? It would,
If we built 2 new gyms?
yeah.
So if we did 2 new gyms, there isn't a line sort of under the HB and HA. We'd have to say, for example, for the HB, 21.9 million to build the school, and then go down and add the 7.4 million for the new school and the 9 million for the high school.
Okay,
So
got
that
it.
would have to be manual.
Perfect. I'm not saying we do that, I'm just making sure I understand the term.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Either new school is going to have a gym in it.
Right.
It's just a question of whether it's expanded to become a bigger gym, okay, for competition purposes, or the other option is to add a gym on it.
Right. I just wanted to make sure I understood how the numbers add up, which I do now. Thank you. That's good.
That's one of the questions I was asked when I was out and about is, if you build a new school, won't it have a gym? Yes. But it won't have a competition-sized gym like you'd have for the high school, or it wouldn't have, we're talking actually about a second gym for the high school.
Correct.
So,
If you want to use a comparison, you have a gym similar to what you currently have at either the elementary main gym or at the middle school gym versus what you currently have at the high school, which would be taking in another level up and more bleachers, etc.
So like a PE gym for elementary schoolers versus a varsity competition basketball.
Just a moment. If you can't hear back there, you're free to bring your chairs up here. We don't have the sound system hooked up. Just pull them up here, out of the way of the video recorder, that's fine. If you need to leave, just walk out that door and then, okay, sorry.
Very good, thank you. That's awesome information.
The last piece, just for discussion purposes at a later point after you've gone through the survey, et cetera, is that I had Quarles and Brady put together resolutions. They're just draft resolutions. So the first one essentially is just an outline, is for a non-recurring referendum, meaning what we were just talking about, replacing the 950. The second one is, and you can do it either way, either a non or a recurring. The resolution is pretty much the same. It's just whether it's titled one or the other. The second sample is an initial resolution authorizing general obligation bonds, and that would be to exceed for public purposes of acquiring the land for a school building. So right now, it's a separate resolution to purchase the land. There is a possibility that if you have it in 2 separate resolutions, meaning land is in one and a building is in the other, you might see one approved and the other one denied potentially, which would give you an issue. But you could also ask to have them combined together. In other words, the land acquisition and the building become one resolution. But for the purposes of the way that we put the survey out, I had to separate it out separately. Then you go to sample number 3. That's essentially option, I believe it's that's HA, okay? And then the last one, sample number 4, that would be essentially, well, actually, the third sample could be HA or HB because it's the number that you plug in, not whether it is or isn't. And you may have to tweak it a little bit depending on which one of the two regarding remodeling, et cetera. The last one then is to do either a $9 million gym or a $7.4 million gym. So essentially, you could have 4 questions, recurring, non-recurring referendum, a building site, a building, and to add or not add one or the other gym options. Or you could condense it down to 3, meaning you do a recurring or non-recurring referendum, the site purchase in a building or another second question, and do you or do you not want to add a gym being the third question? Okay. But that will be kind of like the last thing you have to do tonight is make a decision relative to how you want to.
We do that tonight or we do that next week?
You have to give me some direction so that when I need to get back to Paul's and Brady and have them put the final resolutions together. So you're gonna have to address this sometime tonight and give me direction so that I can tell them how you want to proceed. Next week will be coming together and actually approving the resolution.
Okay.
Last but not least, just the point of beginning, which is an engineering firm along with Steve Keypaper, last week walked both sites. I sent you a copy of the information on the sites. There's pros and cons on both, but I do want to point out that both of them are feasible sites. The Baldwin property has a fewer concerns that will need to be addressed than the Grothman property. And the main concern with the Baldwin property is that a majority of that site is outside the city limits. But I've had discussions with city and the town. As long as it was being annexed for a school purposes, there is really no opposition to that. So that issue is not necessarily a big concern. This property would most likely need to be annexed, as I said, and zoned appropriately for the school development. You also have to get a conditional use permit while that process was going on in order for the site to be used for school development. We would also, in any offer to purchase or final offer to purchase, we would have to make sure that that contingency is addressed so that if for some reason it wasn't annexed, that would void the purchase. There are 2 main concerns with the Grothman property. The first is that it's currently zoned as a housing development. And that type of zoning is usually set aside for large developments such as currently exist. However, in some cases, it can be redefined. And again, I've had discussions with the city. There is no problem with doing that, so you're not going to run into a major issue with the city not agreeing to rezone it for the purposes of the school. That is the whole purpose of having those meetings early on and getting some of these questions decided before we even got to that point. The second concern is that there is an intermittent stream, which means that when it rains, there's water that runs across the property. That's referred to by the DNR as an intermittent stream. Having had to deal with this one other time, it's not clear what the Army Corps of Engineers or the DNR would require for that stream, but we talked about that it's water diversion, there's a basin, we have to address that. So that's just merely stating something that we already knew, but the intermittent stream part of it is the thing that has brought up some questions. With all of this being said, both sites are feasible. The only reason that one property would be recommended over the other is that it has fewer unknowns. But in most cases, those unknowns could lead to additional costs. So we have to make sure that we know what those are on the front end. Since we're currently doing nothing more than just exploring and discussing with the property owners, this is just another piece of data and information as we move forward with that, along with pictures and other pieces of information that you can use in order to make that decision at a later point in time. Most of this data and information is just to help you reach a kind of an ending point saying this is what we're going to do, this is what we need to pull together. The survey gives you some insight into what people are thinking, and obviously some, what I would call questions and/or information that we need to address going forward, no matter what direction you decide to take with this project. So with that, I think you got all the data, all the information, and everything that I discussed tonight will be added to the website under the facility study, so that anybody and everybody who wants to look at it can go in and see the same information that you reviewed. And not want to put the survey information out there until you had a chance to discuss it, you had an opportunity to make your determinations, and then obviously we'll make it available to anybody and everybody through the website. That makes sense to everybody? Okay, so with that, I'm kind of done with the data and the information. Turn it over to you for discussion and moving forward with what you need to try to accomplish tonight.
Well, where do you want to start?
Survey.
Well, I do want to thank the 393 people that had input into it. But there's a lot more people that are going to be voting out there, so it's hard to gauge which way people are going to go. So I'll leave my comments to the end. Bill, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Okay.
I'm looking at the survey. So,
Well, should we go by question or
Might be good to take it by topic.
by topic?
Deal with the operating referendum first, and then move into your facility questions.
So if you take the probably yes and the definitely yes and add them together, the non-recurring is around 76%, and the recurring is around,
Can you speak up as much as you
sorry,
possibly can? Thank
and
you.
the recurring is around 58%, just doing quick math there. But the non-recurring is heavily weighted towards the definitely yes. At 45%. I don't know what that tells. To me, these both tell me that we have support for a referendum, or for a operating referendum. We have a lot more support for a non-recurring, but we do have support for recurring. Again, you would factor in the other, what, 7,000 people that have potentially are voters. This is just one data point.
This is one data point. I feel that we should probably go with the non-reoccurring, 5-year non-reoccurring, instead of one for the reoccurring referendum. So we make sure for the next 5 years our schools will be operating.
Well, and I think that, there was concern expressed definitely about that open-end dollar amount. And, how much is the board really going to keep putting out there? I mean, there was enough concern with that, or it got brought up different times. I told you I was gonna wait till the end.
No, you're good. Shelley, is there any way you can mute your microphone until you want to say something?
I've talked to her already about it.
No.
She can't hear, basically, us, unless you're sitting right next to her. So I'm saying that's probably turned off because it's distracting to me. I don't know about you.
It's
Tell her you're turning it off.
Ask her opinion. Ask Bill his opinion.
Do you have your opinion, Shelley? Because you're really distracting to the rest of us. Because we can hear what's going on in the background of where you are.
okay, I'm actually outside by the place I'm at. I actually think that we should take a look at, there's some really good comments after question number 3. So question number 3.
Okay, we're talking about non-recurring and recurring right now.
Okay,
We're talking about recurring or non-recurring referenda on operation.
Oh, I think it should be non-recurring after reading the comments that are in there. I actually agree with the staff that if we have a recurring referendum, it seems like we can just spend, even though we wouldn't, I think the public would feel that we can just spend money ad nauseam because we wanted to and set it that way. So I think a non-recurring referendum would be best on that end.
Okay, thank you. Bill?
I disagree. I think part of our job between now and November is to educate the public about what the value, why it would be more valuable for us to have a recurring referendum, given the way that state aid and the way that our amounts are being determined and the powerlessness that we have to provide under that system. And we're going to have to continue to come back to people until they change and until they change the way that money is determined. And I feel like we can convince people that it doesn't make sense to cover that. And that's how I feel.
Okay.
I think we've given a lot of information to people, and obviously some of them don't really look at it. They have their opinions, and some of their opinions are not necessarily steeped in knowledge, but just they're fact-based. And that's why I don't know. I think if we want something to pass, we really have to listen to what people are saying, which is don't raise our taxes. A lot of people do not want the building on a new site. I know I'm burning off of the referendum, but I would say this. And adding a second gym, I think is more important to some people than others. But there are so many possibilities in here. I would think that there's a few things that seem to come back over and over in the survey from various people that make sense to me. And I think one of them is the non-recurring. I don't think people want us to just have what they feel would be an open checkbook. And I know we can educate them, but we can't educate everybody. And some of the people who don't want to get educated are more local than people who have knowledge. Know they have the knowledge, and therefore they're okay with the situation, so they don't talk as much. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. So.
Well, with the comments I've heard, I'd like to make a motion that we go with the 5-year non-recurring referendum in the amount of $1.7 billion. Excuse me. Per year.
I'll second it so we can have discussion.
Okay, see, Westfall, Ricks. Did you both hear that? It's good. Carl made a motion.
That was for 5 years?
Yes.
Okay.
Non-recurring for
I have to live with that.
1.74, did you say?
1.7.
If it was seconded,
Yeah, it was seconded.
Yep.
we have discussion?
Yep, we're doing discussion
right
now.
now.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Can I ask a point of clarification? I'm not there. Is there anything in the board rule that says that if you're not there, you're not going to be allowed to vote? I just want to make sure that that this is okay. I don't mind being in the discussion, but when we get to the vote, am I allowed to vote?
Yes, you are, because you may not be physically present, but you're part of the discussion and present in the
Okay,
meeting.
that's in the rule someplace where I can do that. Thanks. Okay. Thank you.
So, I guess I'm very conflicted on this because on one hand, I feel a responsibility to not just kick this can down the road to the next board. On the other hand, I agree with what everybody's saying. I mean, I think think Bill's got a point. I think we haven't done any education yet. It would be, with these numbers, I think we have the ability to educate enough to keep this number at least where it's at, which is at 58%. On the other hand, I guess the flip side of this is, let's say the state government changes and they reformulate the amount of money that the districts get. I guess I can see where people are leery that we wouldn't go back and correct this, right? So a 5-year kind of puts that check in that says at 5 years, we'll reevaluate and see where we're at.
And we could have a better student population at that time too than is predicted also. It depends on what happens in our district. I know there's a lot of people that like Lodi schools and are planning to actually move out here.
Don't we already see that going now? You're shaking your head.
Your assumption that we would agree upon a referendum for 5 years and then we have to take that amount of money is incorrect. Every year, we would decide how much we need. About 10 years ago, we had a referendum. The first year we took $100,000 less than what the referendum had passed for. So every year, we would take what we need as long as it didn't exceed the amount we had agreed to.
Right,
And that's-
again, another educational point.
That would be a huge thing for a lot of people that they don't understand.
I have to ask clarification, but maybe Dan knows this. I know with a recurring referendum, you do not have to spend whatever the amount is, like the 1.7, and you don't lose the taxing authority in the coming year. On a non-recurring, is that still the same, or?
With recurring authority under the revenue cap, that builds up your base. So if you choose not to levy a portion of your base, you carry that authority forward to the following years. For a non-recurring referendum or any other non-recurring exemption, if you do not use it, you lose it. And that's true of a non-recurring referendum or any of the other non-recurring exemptions, such as declining enrollment under the revenue line.
So you lose it for that year, or the next year, let's say we levied 1.7 million, then it would be 1.6 is what we would get?
So let's say that you chose to under levy by $100,000.
Okay.
If that is $100,000 of your base, which would include a recurring referendum, that $100,000 would carry forward to the following year and to subsequent years. That
You could levy
authority,
at 1.8 million then?
no, that piece of authority that you chose not to levy in a given year would remain for future years. It does not mean what the next year's levy is going to be or the following year. That's just authority that continues to exist for the district. If you choose an under levy by $100,000 and it's non-recurring authority through a referendum or another exemption, that goes away and you would not have the option of levying that the following year.
So, 2 scenarios. Recurring, first year you levy, if you got authority for 1.7, you only levy for 1.5, so you're $200,000 less than what you have authority for. The next year, you can still levy for $1.7 million. It doesn't go away. If you do a non-recurring, and the first year you levy for 1.5, the next year, the only authority you have is for 1.5. You no longer have 1.7.
No. You're sure that that's how that runs? So we do not, if we levy for 1.5, the next year, we can only levy for 1.5.
That's what Mr. Clark
Yes,
told us.
yes.
So the next year, we can only level for 1.5.
If we're talking about your motion, so if your
Yes,
motion,
my motion.
so if your motion is for 1.7, okay, 1 year you decide you're only gonna levy 1.5 of that. That's fine. The next year, you can levy up to 1.7 again,
Yes, okay, that's
but
my
that
motion.
200 grand you under levy goes away.
Yes.
One thing I will point out is that since Lodi has had declining enrollment for the last several years, part of the levy that you set last year was for the referendum, the current 950 that you have. An additional $220,000 of that was an exemption for declining enrollment. That is a non-recurring exemption. So even if you made a recurring referendum, as long as we're in declining enrollment, there's going to be that slice at the top that is use it or lose it authority. Because that is the way the DPI administers the revenue limit. It hits non-recurring exemptions first, if the referenda or any other exemption, and then it goes to your base.
I know this is confusing.
Yes.
And this is why it's difficult for us to explain this to the public,
Yeah.
because of the way that the formula works and because of the situation that we're in. I saw in there a lot of times about complaints about, raising taxes. I don't think people understand is that the only thing that's happening is the state keeps taking away more money, and in order to have the same amount of money the following year, we end up having to tax back up to the same level that we were. We're not increasing the amount of money that we have, because that's set by the state. We do not increase our budget. But every year that the money goes away, from the standpoint of the state taking money, either diverting it to charter schools or private vouchers, or however they take it away, it means less money is coming to our school district, and the only way that that's made up is on the taxes. I don't think people understand that whole concept of that formula because of these complicated issues that interplay with it. So I wanted to make sure that you, at least, who have to make this decision, we're going to have to explain that very thoroughly when we go forward, no matter which way you decide to go on. But I wanted it one more time just to make sure that you're clear. And if you have any questions, Dan's my expert, so I refer to him. So.
All right, Dan, I do have one question.
Yes.
My motion was to levy at 1.7.
Your motion,
To just plain without any of the other little innuendos that they have on top of this, for the base, above the base.
Essentially, you already got as a non-recurring referendum for 5 years in the amount of 1.7 million.
Correct.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
what you're suggesting that the resolution be drafted as.
Correct. If we only levy that resolution to 1.5 for 1 year, we have levied 200,000 less for that year. The next year, we can levy at 1.7, correct?
correct.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. So it doesn't lower the amount of what my motion was, but it does erase the money that we could have levied that year, and that is gone.
That's correct. And just to be clear, when you're talking about a referendum, you're talking about revenue authority rather than levy. So just because the referendum is $1.7 million does not mean the levy impact is $1.7 million, because the revenue limit is a combination of state aid and tax money. And depending on how the state aid plays out with that, the levy amount on a $1.7 million referendum is more than that, because we are negatively aided.
Correct, yes, I understand that.
So just like now, the levy changes with our base. It can still change under the referendum, plus the referendum.
That is correct.
Yes.
Nothing like shooting craps,
Okay, any other discussion on that?
Yeah, just one question I have is the 5 years, taking all that detail, am I the only one that's here?
I think you're the only one that's hearing that. Feedback.
Hard for me to hear, is that feedback coming from me?
No, it's Shelley's phone that's sitting up against it. You might have to move that. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, so it's 5 years in the court, in the district, 5 years gives enough time to get something really working in the budget process, and the way we're doing things, so that in 5 years, when we come back to if the state legislature has not changed the way that the funding is determined, then we have, but that 5 years gives us enough time to to do something good then. And we can make sure that people know, do we need more powers? I mean, that would be the only reason I would still want to have a recurring referendum is that if the mess is not going to go away, we're still going to have to, people are going to have to pay more money. There's no other, how are we going to maintain it? So it's 5 years going to be enough for us. Because if it is, if we feel like, yeah, 5 years will give us enough time to then do what we need to do, then I'm willing to support that.
Essentially, what you're gonna have, you're gonna have 2 biennial budgets developed by the state within that 5-year period of time. We're on the 2nd year of that the first current biennium. You would be extending it out 5, so you would have 2-year state biennial budgets in place before that 5th year came around, which is when you would have to make decisions about where you were gonna go with either another non-recurring or recurring referendum based on financial data from the 2 previous state budgets.
Okay.
But I think too, the way I understand it is to answer your question, Bill, is that there is the only things we could do to make the budget match the reduction is to drastically cut staff, drastically cut programs, unless the state increases our aid or our enrollment grows drastically. So in 5 years, if nothing changes at the state and we stay in decline or even slightly grow, we're not going to be able to make up the budget without
Another referendum.
another.
But we can do that. I guess what I'm optimistic that the public is becoming more educated about how it's not good and it's going in. So maybe there will be. Okay, that's all.
And I think the other thing that we also will need to do is, as we develop this 1.7 million over the next 5 years, is just like we did with the last 3-year referendum, and that is delineate what's going to go into facility maintenance and operations, what's going to go into infrastructure or technology, and what's going to go into maintaining staff. So it's very clear on the front end, at least for the first 3 years anyway, and maybe then reevaluate in the year number 4. Or if we think we can put at least a plan out there for all 5 years, we should get it out there so that people know this is what our plan is.
The one thing 5 years would do is 3 years, hate to break it to you, but it goes really fast.
You're right.
Seems like we just went out to all those meetings.
And I'm not sure the public understands, the last time we went for need, not wants, and we didn't even get all our needs, and so that's how our buildings are starting to pile up with repairs that are needed, and that when they said, the board is fiscally unresponsible, I take, personal offense to that, because we spend a lot of time on
And the
this.
salaries that are within teachers is too high. Some of the comments was just not what you at those bases of there.
So yeah, there are, a fair amount of people uneducated, but I'm hoping we can educate some, they spread the word, but it's tough. Especially if we only educated about 50 the last time in 21 meetings. So.
The referendum we went for, when we went for 950,000, was between $250,000 and $300,000 less than we had researched for. So those projects that we didn't do are all still waiting for us.
And more probably have occurred.
Well, I know one of the bigger ones was roof.
Okay, so do we have any other discussion on this one? We ready to take a vote?
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna do a roll call, and we're gonna start with Carl, since he made the motion.
I vote yes.
Shelley? She's still there. Shelley?
Grab a phone.
She might be gone. Bill? Beers?
Yes. Yes.
Shelley, can you hear me?
She might be gone.
It's probably muted.
I can hear the phone.
Can you hear yourself?
Yell it to it.
Shelley? Okay, Steve?
Yes.
She might not be by the phone.
Yes.
First, yes. I'm yes. Can't hear. Shelley? Okay. So,
How are we gonna do that?
She can't go.
Can't go, she's not,
Can't participate, she can't.
can't hear, so essentially from this point forward, if she's not part of the conversation, she can't have a vote.
so the motion carries 5-0. So, non-recurring, operating, referendum, 1.7 million. Okay,
5 years.
5 years, sorry. So the next topic is,
Next topic is kind of a combination, facility and site, and what you would prefer to do relative to that. Obviously, we don't have a site necessarily to purchase, so, but you could include them together from the standpoint of attaching an amount to that purchase, not to exceed, and the facility. Again, the same thing is that the thing about this kind of bonding referendum is you only have to bond for the amount that you need. You do not necessarily have, so if you just said 1.5 million for the property, and then whatever facility you wanted to attach to it, add the two together and say, this is the amount not to exceed, you can still turn around, bond for less on the second year, knowing what those costs actually are. That makes sense to everybody? Or if you want to do them separately, then you just attach a number to the property resolution, and then you decide which facility you want to look at.
It's going to be particularly difficult if the people approve, if we split a land purchase and the school into two separate questions, and one passes and the other one doesn't.
Right.
If the land purchase passes and the school purchase doesn't, we have authority to buy land for later. If the purchase of the land does not pass, but the building does, then we have to put it on a site that we have, like the middle school. So we do it either way, it works. And that way we find out exactly if the public does want to purchase land or not. And that would not, and they want to have the other school built, we would then know that they don't want to purchase land, but they want the other school.
Then you're gonna have to make a decision on the front end, which property you're buying, because you can't have it separate from the standpoint of not designating the property. So if you look at the sample resolution number 2, it would be not to exceed a certain amount. You'd have to determine how many acres, and you're gonna have to say which site, which you're not at a position to be able to say that at this particular juncture based on where you are in the negotiation side of the equation.
But you're saying we could combine that with a building,
But you can find it in the building. In other
but
words,
we wouldn't have to do that.
you would not have to identify the site. If you have it as a separate one, you have to identify the site. That's the only difference between the two. And if you're willing to do that, then negotiate it after the fact, then that's a little bit different perspective.
Okay, could we have that as a referendum, a building and a site as our question?
Yes.
And then also have another question that said, would you just support a building without purchasing land? Would that be
We need
possible?
to be clear about what it is that we think is the best thing. That's what
Yeah, I
ought
don't
to be
think we
possible. I'm weary of having a whole bunch of choices
Yeah.
around that referendum, not, I think referendum up or down, not, here's a bunch of choices.
Okay, so I don't know what figure to go for, but I'd like to make a motion that we put in the purchase of the land and the new building. But I don't know what figure we
Well,
should have to
if you're gonna
use.
do that, then you need to talk about which one of the two options you want as far as the building, and then you can decide to put the land with it. And decide what amount you wanna attach to it so that you combine the two together on the amount. That makes sense? Did you hear me, Bill?
Yeah,
Okay.
but don't we have to do that, that's not, we don't do that in those agreements, do we?
No, he said we need to decide which building option we go with and then just say that we're gonna include the land purchase in that.
Right, okay.
And not to exceed a certain amount, whatever you want to attach to it. Because again, if you do a second bond issue, you can determine if the property costs you less than what the amount that you set, you don't have to levy that debt
Right.
in the second bond issue.
What's the price on these two plans again?
And on the survey, which one was?
Yeah, I'm trying to find it.
I couldn't find it.
Well, I guess if we're picking one over the other, we gotta decide if we're getting rid of if we're keeping the district office, is that, I can't keep this stuff straight.
Well, that's. So there was, in the survey question, there was HA with and without the office, and then the HB, right?
Well, then let's look at one, option first, so we're clear on what we're doing. So HA, you guys got your drawings yet?
HAE says you're gonna build a new elementary school
Is that
on a,
sample number 3?
yes. And option HA says you're gonna build a new elementary school on a separate site to house all the elementary grades, that's early childhood through fourth grade. You're gonna remodel the existing Lodi Middle School to add fifth grade classes, which are not part of the OSC program, and make entrance safety improvements there. You're gonna make minor internal renovations at Lodi High School, and you're gonna move the district office to the high school and build or lease a new shop building. That's the original HA. The option is to do HA, but not to
Keep this building.
keep this building intact.
Right.
That's the two things with HA in terms of the initial HA proposal. Which means that you're getting rid of both the primary school and the elementary school and building one new building to house those that I just listed for you. The cost of that,
What's the dollar, what's the dollar figure on that?
I didn't bring it in with, but it's,
I think it's 36.
Steve, do you happen to have the numbers?
Yeah.
Or I can go get my.
Can she vote anymore or no? Since she was,
No.
okay, so then we need to go tell her she's done and hang up, because this is annoying. Shelley? You missed the last vote, so you're not able to participate anymore and vote. We asked several times for you to come. You must have been away from your phone, so. Well, okay. Well, you missed it. Yep, because there's people in our audience that are watching, so. We asked you like 4 times.
The total cost of everything,
So,
meaning the
sorry.
high school renovation, the middle school renovation, the
All right,
elementary
thanks.
disposing of it, which is estimated at about $270,000 of income, and the primary school, $180,000 income. Whether that's accurate or not accurate, it doesn't matter, but that new school would cost $27,070,000. At add to that site cost, which in this case is just estimated at 1.125 million. And then if you added the district office, it would be another 1,760,000. So the total cost of that option as it's laid out initially is $32,985,000. With that then comes roofing replacement, asphalt replacement in terms of parking lots, and mechanical HVAC upgrades to bring the total up to $34,872,700. Total package of option HA. If you eliminate the district office, then it reduces that amount by $1,760,000. We already have done the tennis court, so you don't have to include that in. So that would reduce it another $165,000. And the number that comes forward in that.
Okay, did you say something about the maintenance building in there too?
Yes.
Okay.
So that then.
Chuck, is that your copy with the notes or without the notes?
Pardon?
The Plunkett sheet, is that your marked up copy or your plain copy?
No, it's just
Okay, I'll print you a marked up copy.
okay.
All right, while we're getting that, then let's look at HB. Can we get that total? Okay, let's
Okay,
keep things
so
moving.
the total for HB is the,
What number is that?
HB we're talking about now.
I know, but is it a sample resolution?
No, it'd
No.
be the same one. We would plug in what we do.
We're trying to get the final number of what the HA would be. All right, so to save time, we're moving on.
under HB, in terms of that option, which is the next survey question. Read it off. HB would build a new elementary school on a separate site to house early childhood, 4-year-old kindergarten, and the OSC charter school program. Remodel the existing Lodi Elementary School to house grades 1 to 4. Remodel the existing Lodi Middle School to add 5th grade, which is not part of the OSC program, similar to the other one. Make safety entrance improvements at the middle school. Make minor internal renovations at Lodi High School, and make roof heating and ventilation repairs on the existing district office at an estimated tax, well, that's what you would do. The cost for that, high school, $230,000 worth of renovation. Middle school would be $2,230,000 worth of work. Elementary school over here would be $3,450,000. We would sell off the primary school, which would then garner $180,000 back. The new school in this particular case would cost $12,830,000, including the site value of estimate $1.125 million. So the subtotal for those options is $19,685,000. Then you would add $927,500 for the roofing replacement, $549,000 approximately for the asphalt replacements, and then mechanical HVAC upgrades in the district for $396,000. That total is $21,722,700, but we would remove $165,000 of that because the tennis courts have already been done. So the actual total on that one is $21,557,700. That's for option HB. The total cost for option HA is $34,707,700. But if you remove the district office, then it becomes $32,947,700. And I've got a copy where I just kind of laid it out in one format.
So Chuck, too, and it's really close to, if we go back to this very first sheet we went through, and it has the mill rates on it. The figures aren't exactly, they're within a couple of thousand, but they're really close to that. So that shows you the impact of the mill rate, which is the important part too, right?
Well, then, the motion I was going to make then, so we have some discussion here, would be the option HB, which would, we could say 22 million then, correct?
Yeah, you
Because-
can just say that.
Just say 22 million. And go with that option.
Okay, before we make that motion though, we have gym discussion to have still. I mean, I'm not quite sure where they're at in a motion.
Well, we have to have a motion. Discuss it in a second.
But we got, no, it's, okay, so
You
you're,
can discuss a lot of different things without the motion on the table. But once you put the motion on the table, then you have to discuss. the
Discuss
motion.
just that motion.
Yes.
okay.
So are you putting a motion on the table?
Yes, I am, but I need a second.
Which one did you go with?
The HB, yeah, 22 million.
22 million?
Yeah.
I'll second it.
Okay, so it's Westfall Beers, now discussion.
It doesn't include everything we need to talk about, so I'm not going for it. I make a motion to be in the discussion.
You just want to have discussion.
Right, just the end of discussion.
Well,
I'll second it.
for my motion for a second. You
Who
want
wants
to
to
just call a vote, call a vote.
Call a vote on yours? Okay. So we're calling a vote, Bill, on Carl's motion. So we'll start with,
That's the 22 million without the competition gym at the B school or the competition gym at the high school, right?
Correct.
correct.
And without anything relative to the site.
And how come?
Well, I thought the site was in there.
There's no discussion. Nobody wants to talk
Oh,
about
yes,
it.
it
The
is.
site is in there.
Okay, you're right, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, the site is in there because it's 1.125 million.
Some board members want to have the discussion about the high school or the additional gym.
What I want to
Okay.
do, what I wanted to do is have the additional gyms as a separate, question.
We should talk about that
So I made the motion for this first and see if this would pass first.
first. Okay, call the vote.
Okay, so we have a motion, Westfield Beers, Carl,
Yes?
Bill, Beers,
No,
Brooks,
No.
Rutherford. I say no. So motion fails with, Carl's motion. So is there a new motion? Or we just want to discuss?
Can we just discuss that motion?
Discuss.
Let's just talk about this for a little bit and we can make a motion.
Is that okay, Carl? I mean, Chuck?
Yep.
Okay, let's go.
What do you want to discuss?
The gyms. So what do we do about the gyms? Is this something that we want to pursue? When we look at the survey questions, again, when I look at, so a larger gym at the new school is only running about 39% when you add probably yes and definitely yes. At the high school is running about 40%. Again, if you add definitely yes and probably yes. So, I mean, I think we've heard a lot about these gyms, that the public wants them, but the survey didn't, if we just went by the survey, which I'm not, again, it's a data point, it didn't show overwhelming support. I don't know.
But like you said, we have a potential of some thousand more people vote,
Yeah,
and then we'll know for sure.
yeah. So the question is, do we go the way Carl was heading towards, which is separate that question out? Or do we include it in with the building?
I think we separate it out so that if we do get the answer, we do get a yes on our building, we have a building.
I don't disagree with that.
And if we don't, and if we do get an answer on the other, to have the gyms, then we have both. But if we don't have, if they vote down the building and say yes on the gyms for the middle school and high school, we still have the gyms.
Well, it does kind of, because we've got room in the high school to move students, but we're gonna need additional
We're
gym
gonna need
space. for
additional
sure.
gym to move students.
And
Well, the way
depending,
go ahead.
but depending how the public goes, then if they turn down a school and a site, we have no option, we have to utilize the high school.
True.
We have to.
Because we would close the primary.
Yeah. And then we'd have the gym at the high school then, and we could, and,
Well, it's all part of the problem, but we're gonna have other problems.
yeah, we're gonna have other problems, but
Do we have to ask to close the primary?
You have to ask to sell it, but you do that with the authority to sell.
Okay. At the annual meeting, you don't have to go to referendum.
But, but
Go ahead.
the way our survey is put together, we have a competition gym either at the new school, the new, let's call it a primary school, or we have it at the high school.
So you have to decide, if you're gonna separate it out as a separate question, you have to decide which one you want to pursue. If you're gonna have it as a separate question. If you're going to include it in one or the other, then it has to be designated which one you're, either way, you're gonna have to designate which way you're gonna go with this.
So the new school's got a gym on it, it's just not a competition.
Exactly.
So then it's easy
It's
to
gonna be a
say.
physical education gym, similar to the middle school,
If
if
you
you
do
wanna
a
look at it.
competition gym, we'd probably do it at the high school.
right.
So that's,
So essentially, you got, this is what you have to decide. You want to do HA or HB in terms of the building. And then attached to that, obviously, is the, do you want to do a gym on the school, or do you want to do a gym at the high school, which is a separate question, or you include it in with one of the options that you choose?
We wouldn't be adding another gym to the new school, it would be enlarging the one that's.
Enlarging the
Okay,
one that's,
all right.
you're
Wanna
not adding
clarify.
two, you're not making two gyms at the new school.
Okay.
You're,
I wanna
you're going to
clarify.
have a gym in that school for physical education purposes. What you're asking is to spend another $7 million to expand the size of that gym and make it into another basic high school size gym for competition
Yeah.
purposes.
And it's cheaper if we build it at the new school, right?
Yeah, it's 7.4 million if you put it onto the, either one of the options. Or if you build it at the high school, it's $9 million. Because it's not, the gym itself is not more expensive. It's still 7.4 million, but if you put it onto the high school, we have to redirect traffic. We have to build access across that ditch, if you want to call it, so that there's PE space on the other side, which we have not used or utilized. The Ice Age bridge that's there right now would have to be replaced with an actual access bridge that could take vehicles, et cetera, and equipment over there, because we'd be using that other side for physical education classes outside.
and we're upgrading the, weight room,
Yeah.
locker
Yeah,
rooms.
exactly.
That stuff.
And there's other parts to that, it's not just the gym. The gym is the 7.4, it's the outside facilities, the weight room, and the wrestling room that are added onto that as part of that extension.
All right, convince me.
Or you want a motion,
Go the way you're, well, do you want to make your motion again?
I'd make the same motion again. and-
Well, okay, let's think about this. We're asking for the right dollar figure.
And then have, I have to make it, can I make it the same motion that have a separate,
We do the other one first, do the, let's call it an auxiliary gym. Auxiliary competition gym at the high school, weight room, all of that. Do that one first, that'll clarify it. That way it'll be on a separate motion.
is that how we should do it, Chuck? So, I want to go with the HB thing that we did before.
If you want to go with HB, you need to to pursue option HB at a cost of $22 million, okay?
Correct.
And that
Based
includes
on-
land.
okay.
That
That's the
includes
plan,
land.
that's the building plan.
Okay.
Then a separate motion on what you want to do with the gym has to be
Okay.
a second action, meaning you're either going to add it to that building at a cost of whatever, Because all you're doing is just saying we're gonna enlarge that gym, or we're not gonna enlarge it, or we're gonna build a gym onto the high school. It's either or, okay, if you wanna pursue a gym.
Is that gonna be in a separate resolution or with the,
I would, well,
Yeah,
that's up to
separate
you,
question.
you can decide,
I
if you
think
want
that's
it
what
as
we're
a separate.
proposing as a separate question.
so it'll be a separate resolution is what you're saying,
So
okay.
you'd have basically three. You've got, you already did the non-recurring for 5 years.
Mhm.
Now you have to decide about your building, and then you decide about the gym. That's basically what you're discussing
So
with.
Carl, are you gonna make that motion again?
I'll make the motion again, see if it passes this time.
Chuck?
And I'll
Wait a minute.
There's a question about making exactly the same motion.
So, just to make sure everything's kosher, if you wanted to revisit Carl's question, one of the people who voted no, since that's the side that passed, would have to move to reconsider Carl's motion and reopen it.
That was what I was gonna say, is that Carl cannot make the motion, it has to be someone who voted against the motion to reintroduce the motion in order to do it correctly. Okay?
What we're yelling for.
I thought we weren't following Robert's Rules of Order.
It's not even
It's not
Robert's
Robert's.
rules of order, it's.
All right, I will make a motion that, since I was one of the ones that said no, I'll make a motion that we go with Plan HB for, the dollar figure was 22 million. Not to exceed 22 million. Yes, guys.
Second.
Who's the most serious section, so.
Okay,
we
so
gotta make-
Rex Whipperford,
We just want our names on it.
discussion.
No, we hadn't heard.
I'm asking if there's any more discussion. Okay, roll call, we're gonna start with Rick since he made the motion.
Yes.
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 Bill? Beers?
Yes.
I say yes. So that motion carries 5-0. Is this one of the buildings that needs the air conditioning fixed?
The primary school is, no, this one?
It is hot in here.
Yes and no.
It's just the position you're sitting in.
Oh, it is hot.
Depends on the day, some days it's working, some days it's not.
I'm on a fan that's working. Okay,
Okay, Carl.
Okay, now I would like to make the motion of putting the competition gym on the high school. At, it's 9 or 10?
9.
9.
Second. That would detail all of the things,
yeah.
moving the athletic field, putting in the bridge and
Yep, it's all in
weight
there.
room and.
Right, Steve, everything's in there, yep. Make sure it's protected.
Okay, any other discussion on this? Okay, roll call, we're gonna start with Westfall since he made the motion.
Yes.
Bill Beers?
Could you repeat the motion?
Motion, Westfall would prefer to pursue adding a competition high school gym at a cost not to exceed $9 million.
But that's at the high school.
Yes, at the high school.
And
9 million
we
or
have-
10 million?
I guess the discussion on that, the question I was, in the referendum,
9
we
million
have
or 10
discussion
million?
on the location.
I didn't hear what he said.
Bill, say that again?
Do we have to specify the location at this time?
Yes, so the gym we do.
Yes.
Okay.
And I don't know if you heard the discussion, but it's also gonna include moving the practice fields from the high school, rerouting traffic, the additional, the weight room and upgrading locker rooms. Did you hear that?
Yep.
Okay, so now,
Are we able to vote now?
yeah, we're in the middle of the vote.
You're asking me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Ricks,
Yes.
Whipperford,
Yes.
and I say yes. So that motion carries 5-0.
Okay, so just summarize what I'm going to be asking Quarles and Brady to put together that you'll be acting on next week. The first one will be a resolution, which you have to sample of, will be for a 5-year non-recurring referendum in the amount of $1.7 million. Okay. Second resolution will be to pursue option HB with all the components that were listed at a cost not to exceed $22 million. And the third resolution will be to pursue the remodeling of the high school to include a new gym, expansion of the wrestling room, expansion of, and addition of a new weight room at a cost not to exceed $9 million.
Correct.
So those are the three questions that will be on your referendum if you pass the resolutions next week.
So, Mr. Dan, I understand that you never know what the tax impact's gonna be until the Thursday after.
He's already punched the numbers in over there.
So tell us what the tax impact is of these three motions together versus where we are now.
Make sure I'm pulling the right numbers from the right places here.
That's what we're counting on, sir.
So, if you take the operating referendum for $1.7 million, you add the building referendum for $22 million, and then you add a gym for $9 million, the net impact on the levy is an extra $163,000 compared to right now, or an extra 15 cents on the mill rate.
For an extra 15 cents what?
Extra 15 cents on the mill rate.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, could you give me one other little figure at this time?
Sure.
1.7 operating and the $9 million gymnasium.
Just those two?
Just those two.
Okay. That would be, compared to right now, 2.4 million less on the levy, or $2.24 less on the mill rate.
What was it? What was your question, Carl?
It was a negative, I wanted to find out if it was a,
Don't build the school.
Oh, if you don't build the school.
don't build the school, and we just kept everything with a $1.7 million operating and the gymnasium, it would be a negative impact on our taxes instead of a positive.
Of course I would, but it would also be a negative impact on our kids.
It would, but I am just saying, I was just asking
Yeah.
where we would stand at that point.
Yep. So we're meeting next week then?
We will meet next Thursday at 6 o'clock, and I will have formal resolutions at that point in time, and you will have to take action to approve those resolutions, and then they'll be formulated into the actual referendum questions that are on the November ballot.
It's at 5:30.
I'm gonna say, is it 5:30 or 6? 5:30, okay.
We'll do it at 5:30.
And that one, we will have a call-in number so we can actually do real conferencing.
Yeah, and it would be best if we have all 7 people here, it's always.
Yep.
So that, and I will get to Quarles and Brady tomorrow first thing, to get these resolutions drafted in their final format. And I'll get those posted in the board docs for next Thursday, so that you see them.
Chuck, sorry, I need to correct myself. I misspoke, and I want to be clear.
It's okay.
The 15 cents, that was just the building itself compared to right now. So to go back to Carl's question, so I want to add, my formulas adding. Now they are. All right, good. So now my formulas are added. Together, the 1.7 and the building and the gym, 1.1 million on the levy, $1 on the mill rate. Adding them both together.
What was it, 1 point what?
$1.1 million
Okay.
for the levy, to add both of them together, compared to what we have right now today, and the $1 on the mill rate. $1.01.
But Carl's question was still right?
Carl's question.
2.25.
So for Carl's question, if we did the gym and the 1.7 did not build the school, that would be a decrease in the tax levy of $1.7 million and a decrease of $1.60 on the mill rate. Or no. It's stuff on the fly. You guys are killing it. It's all right.
It's all right, you're doing
It's all
good,
right.
you're doing good.
Okay.
do.
All right. Add those again. Excellent. Excellent. Okay. $805,000 on the levy, 74 cents down on the mill rate. Combine them together.
Okay. That's what I wanted to hear.
And what I will do, just so everyone's super duper clear, has it on paper, is we'll run these again with the numbers that you gave us, and we'll have Mike Clark run us projections again based on those final numbers.
That would be awesome.
And then we'll get it out to you, and we'll also post it on the website.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, we have kindergarten.
Kindergarten and a crew instructor.
Okay. We need crew kindergarten teacher and a crew instructor, which the new kindergarten teacher's name is.
Really?
I don't have the crew one, which is Dick Ziegler.
Yep.
Caitlin
And the other one is
Riley.
Riley, R-I-L-L-I-N-G.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve Caitlin Riley and
Dick Ziegler.
Dick Ziegler
For crew.
for crew.
Second.
Okay, Westfall, Beers, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
So next week, the only thing will be the resolutions, but we will have probably a couple more, we have a full social studies teacher that we'll have to study at school next week. Otherwise, I think we're pretty well set on staffing, but there may be another co-curricular that we'll throw in there, but that would be the only other action we have to take.
And a field trip.
Pardon?
And a field trip.
Motion
And
to
Or,
adjourn.
I'm sorry, fundraiser. Fundraiser.
I will second your motion.
Beers, Westfall to adjourn. Roll call. Bill? Beers?
Yes, yes.
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 Yes. Motion carries 5-0.